They're not good enough. That's what this is. I mean, you see it. Episode 1 and 2, the cinematography felt fine, felt good almost. Episode 3, the cinematography felt like amateurs, right? It's an inconsistency thing, which is a showrunner's job, is consistency.
Hey everyone, my name's Nick.
And I'm Ray. And today we're going to talk about Lord of the Rings, The Ring of Power. So if you haven't seen already, Nick put out his thoughts on episode 1 and 2. You can check it out right here. So we're going to quickly go over them. I'm just going to give my thoughts on it, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. And then we're going to go into our review for episode 3, and we're going to kind of talk about how episode 1 through 3 as a whole feel so far. And with that, honestly, for episodes 1 and 2, I liked them. They were slow. Game of Thrones, slow at the very beginning. I mean, I remember watching Game of Thrones and I loved how slow it was because it was like this huge buildup that allows for a payoff. And already, you know, there's supposed to be 5 seasons of this. So if they go a little slower in the beginning and they actually set things up properly, cool. So episode 1 was probably the slowest of them. I thought the cinematography was good. I thought the overall feel of the world felt really good. It felt clean, you know, pristine, which makes sense for the elves, dwarves, and men kind of at the height of their civilizations, if you will, on Middle-earth. Although the fight scene with the troll definitely wasn't that great. And this is an issue that happens later on too, where the main characters feel super like superheroes compared to the normal elves they're with, right? And that feels bad to see. But all in all, I thought it was a good introduction episode and nothing really felt too off. I will say this, Elrond has a punchable face, but I think the actor is killing it. I think he's doing a good job. I just, you know, what are you going to do?
I'm not saying he's a bad actor by any means, but I feel like he's definitely the wrong person for that role.
Yeah.
For how Elrond looked in the movies, obviously.
There's the only explanation is so elves don't have healers, right? They have artificers, if you will. So I'm thinking Elrond went and got some cosmetic artificers for his face over the years.
He got some work done later on.
But no, all in all, episode 1 felt good. It was kind of slow, but it was fine. And then at the very end, you know, Galadriel definitely feels a little bit she feels too rash. I mean, she is young for an elf at this point. She's very young for an elf at this point, but she definitely feels very rash, which, I mean, if they want to start her character development there, as long as they end at the part where we know Galadriel is, cool. Because again, I mean, she is young for an elf. She's not Elrond, who's already like 3,000 years old or some shit.
Okay. That's one of my big issues so far. It was all of the episodes is I really dislike Galadriel, and I can't tell if that's how it's supposed to be. I can't tell if I'm supposed to like her or not because I really don't.
She definitely is a completely different person than she is from the Lord of the Rings Galadriel. Mm-hmm. But to be fair, I mean, thousands of years take place between those two, and people change, right? Including elves. And dwarves, right? I mean, Gandalf even changed, right, from when he first came to Middle-earth and not. The one thing that struck out in episode 1 that was kind of odd was the Meteor Man, right? Mm-hmm. Who is this Meteor Man? Better not be Gandalf. Although after watching episode 3,
I was about to say, I'm leaning towards Gandalf, like 90%.
Yeah. But so aside from the wonky troll fight and the rashness of Galadriel's character, which I think could fit considering she is so young right now, they just have to do it well, you know, have the character arc done properly. I thought episode 1 was a good introduction. There were some obvious dislikes, but nothing too bad. Episode 2, on the other hand, it was probably my favorite episode so far out of them. Galadriel's adrift at sea the whole time, and she meets Halbrand, right? So nothing really happens there, right? They have to escape a sea monster, which I am actually kind of glad they showed finally, because, you know, on the map of Middle-earth, you always see the giant sea serpent. You've never seen one, so it actually looked really cool. And this is the one thing I will give Amazon huge props on. Their sets, their scenes, their CGI, if you will, of the backgrounds and stuff are amazing.
It's looking good. I mean, the first season has the budget of the first 3 movies of Lord of the Rings, so
yeah. But you know what the best part about it is? The orcs are costume.
Yeah. Horse looked really good. I was going to talk about that whenever we got to episode 3. They're looking good.
Yeah. So just to recap episode 2, the storylines I'm liking, and the thing I really liked was Elrond, the introduction of Celebrimbor, which I thought was awesome. But Elrond and his interaction with Durin in Moria, that felt very natural. It felt very like, I'm hurt. And Elrond's like, but why, bro? And he doesn't understand because he is an elf, right? And they don't get that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was really well done. I liked Moria or Khazad-dûm, how it looked. I thought it looked really good. And I liked the introduction of their endurance test. I thought that was funny. Fitting for dwarves, right?
I thought it was gonna be a drinking contest.
Honestly,
when they first started talking about it, I was like, oh man, they're about to bring in some kegs right now.
Yeah, dude, Sam. I honestly thought that's where you're going with it. So out of the main storylines for episode 1 and 2, Galadriel's storyline was fine. I think that's going to be the big plot line throughout the show. So it's going the slowest right now. I think Celebrimbor, Elrond, and Durin's plotline is going to be a lot of fun, I think. And I like it so far. I think that's probably the one I liked out of the first 2 episodes the best. The Harfoots are not doing it for me. They did the Hobbits dirty. They did the Harfoots dirty. Dude, take a shower, man. Hobbits had access to lakes and rivers. They could shower. They're not all just dirty.
They're in hiding. They can't.
They can. And then, it's just... Okay, so aside from the dirtiness of how they look, the Meteor Man is just... That's 2 episodes now where he says no words, and he's obviously powerful. He's probably a Maiar. He's got to be, right? But who? Probably leaning towards Gandalf. I hope it's not. There's one reference that I know of in Tolkien's works of a meteor falling during the Second Age. And that ties to the Maiar of the moon. So there's one reference to it. And if it's that Maiar, cool. That'd be a cool little interesting side story. It's written in one poem throughout his writing. Yeah. So if they want to build a story based off that, cool. But I'm thinking it's Gandalf because Gandalf has a huge love for the Harfoots, right? Which this could be the origin of, which could have some cool stuff, but he doesn't come to Middle-earth till the Third Age, which I don't like. And I was hoping they wouldn't do it.
It seems like they're not being stringent on timeline whatsoever, because in episode 3 we also see Isildur. And I believe maybe it's a different Isildur, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's way out of timeline. If that's right, Aragorn's great grandfather.
Oh, right? way super.
Oh, it's way more.
Yeah, I think it's a couple generations.
Oh, okay. Obviously, the Númenóreans are super long lived, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. I'll bring it back, but I just couldn't remember exactly how far up in his lineage he is. But sorry, go ahead and finish up your thoughts.
So essentially, episode 1 and 2 so far, I haven't been too upset with lore-wise. Everything kind of fits enough within itself where I was like, cool, there's potential here, right? The elf thing going on in the Southland was pretty cool, Honestly, I thought the set was cool that they built, the little watchtower they had and whatnot. And then at the end, the tunnels, it's like, oh, okay, what's going on? So overall, episode 1 and 2, I really liked. I thought the acting, pros and cons. The acting was great, I thought. The cinematography, for the most part, was really good. The CGI for all the backgrounds and stuff was fantastic. And the use of costumes for orcs, huge love there. The dislikes is, while it does feel slow, it doesn't feel like they're properly doing a slow burn. It feels kind of pointless more than slow, setting up, layers. It feels more like they're just going slow. That'd be the big issue there for me. So episodes 1 and 2, I thought were not, and this is something I do have to say about a lot of the commentary going on YouTube, is that it is unfairly being called abysmal, the worst thing in the world. I think as a show itself, episode 1 and 2 is a 6 out of 10. Okay, right? maybe a 7 if you know nothing about Lord of the Rings ever. But as a show, it's not bad so far. Now, from the lore side of things, episode 1 and 2 isn't even that abysmal. It's like a 2 to a 5 out of 10, right? Depending on how big of a nerd you are. And I think the most accurate way I would rate the episodes is episode 1's a 6, episode 2's a 7. With that, the lore still felt like it fit. Episode 3 fucked it. It fucked it. All right. If you want to talk about abysmal ratings, it's episode 3 you talk about, not 1 and 2. Okay. Just straight up. We'll get into that at the end of our review of episode 3. Let's talk about the positives first. Yeah.
I had a tough time with episode 3 because there were things I liked.
Mm-hmm. I thought Elendil's actor is phenomenal.
Which one's Elendil? He's the captain.
Dad. Yeah, the captain.
Yeah, I liked him. He's cool. As I had mentioned when you were talking about your thoughts on episode 1 and 2, I cannot stand Galadriel. And I'm torn at this point because I don't know if I'm supposed to actually like her or not.
Yeah.
I really don't like her. Episode 1, we see she's a terrible leader. And obviously that's intentional, but she's an awful leader. She doesn't understand why people aren't following her. She's putting all of her own people in harm's way. Episode 2, she goes for a swim.
Yeah.
Episode 3 now, she gets saved by this dude, figures out he's a Numenorian, and is immediately standoffish to everybody and wonders why everyone's so rude to her.
Yeah.
Like I noticed zero rudeness from the humans there. Everyone's like, oh, is that an elf? Is that an elf? So and then she's just a bitch right off the bat.
I will say there is lore canon, if you will, reasoning for her to feel like that right off the bat.
I understand that, and they, might I say, they do a terrible job with their lore dumps. But they do a lore dump, which, right, I get there's background to it, but they show it a little more. Like, give me a reason to believe why she should just immediately, like, be standoffish.
Yeah.
Because I'm just seeing it from her side. Right after Elendil is, like, super cordial to her the whole time, saved her life, like,
so
she was way out of line.
So for episode 3, obviously we're introduced with Galadriel and Halbrand waking up on their captor ship. This is something I hate in every TV show ever in the history of ever. Okay. It's when she's given food and she's like, oh, like she's the hungriest fucking thing in the world. It's like, oh, thanks. You look at it first, give it a sniff. That's what normal fucking people do. They don't just go fucking scarfing down. She was asleep for like a little bit. I get she's hungry, but
she also just swam across an entire ocean.
She's an elf, bro.
What is I mean?
They have different physiology.
Okay.
It's just something I don't like seeing because I would be more cautious of it myself, and it's a personal thing. It doesn't mean it's bad. It's just it's like somebody who chews with their mouth open for me.
Sure. I don't know.
Anyways,
I would just imagine she's ravenous, but
she's probably super hungry. Anyways, they wake up on the boat, right, and they're met by Elendil, which I love the look of the Numenorians, right? They're based off ancient Greece, and I think they pulled the look off really, really well. So I think they nailed the aesthetics of Numenor really, really well. The city looked amazing. It looked grand. And then, yes, she's incredibly standoffish right off the bat because of history, which even Halbrand says, hey, don't let history here or your preconceived notions, like, let's be cordial right off the bat, right. And this is where I think Galadriel is a bit arrogant and abrasive. And I think it's supposed to be, I think it's intentional on purpose because Halbrand specifically mentions it, Anyways, her talk with the Queen Regent starts off Muriel, and immediately I'm just annoyed by her for sure. She's just straight up a cunt. And Muriel's being a bitch back, right? And the councilmen, if you will, the senators, let's call them, are being pricks too. Everyone's just being a prick to each other. And poor Elendil is just trying to do the right thing. Anyways, issues I had in episode 3. I'm just going to throw out my biggest issue with it right now. Too many slow-mos. Just too many. I think the cinematography was the weakest in this episode by a lot because they kept doing slow-mo for everything. The horse riding, come on. You don't need fucking slow-mo for that, you know?
That was so cringe. I hated that. I hated when they did the close-up of her on the horse, slow-mo. And it's not just slow-mo, it's like super slow-mo. Yeah, that was rough.
She was like the...
Yeah.
Okay, and that is just bad directing. And you're setting an actor or actress to just... You're setting them up to fail by doing that. Like, just straight up you are. So I don't blame the actress on that one. That's just an unflattering angle and shot.
Yeah. They set her up on that one.
Yeah, they did. And then the slow-mo later on with the Harfoots, you know, it started looking cool, but then the vibe changed like that. And it's just like, oh, we're Harfoots. And I was just like, that was unnecessary slow-mo now. The only slow-mo that felt proper there was the chain kick right off the bat for the orc.
True.
I thought that looked cool.
Yeah, that one did.
No other slow motion was needed.
And like you said, I agree. I think the Harfoot one looks sick, like, first. I was like, whoa, what? Why are we looking at orcs right now? I didn't even realize it was the Harfoots at first. And then it just went all weird and like...
honky-dory.
Not even silly, though. I mean, I don't know. It was just weird.
It felt out of place. The only one that felt in place was the fight scene with the elves at the end. Which I thought was actually very well done. Although I did have one issue with that scene, which is there was like 15 elves in that pit. Okay. We saw 4 of them die. What happened to the rest?
So are they all elves? I'm assuming some of them are humans too.
Probably, but they just weren't in the pit anymore at the end of it. I watched it twice and saw that, and they just weren't there. I was like, what?
I understand. I got what you're saying.
But the warg was the biggest issue with that scene. That thing looked goofy, man.
It was not scary whatsoever. I agree.
Fucking give me some googly eyes, dude. That's what it was. Those googly eyes.
I agree. Yeah, and this is what I was torn on this episode specifically because of the Numenor scenes. Exactly. Aesthetically, it looked awesome. I like that captain. I like him. I like his character. I like what's going on with him. But again, I hate Galadriel at this point. The Harfoots, I'm indifferent about. I don't particularly like them. Yeah. This one is just like showing. It just feels like they're setting up for a Gandalf reveal, right? That's all it feels like. Just trying to make him like, oh, we're friends. Like that's the first word he speaks, right? Nori and friend.
He should have said Belag.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So the Harfoots. So for the storylines, I think Galadriel's got interesting with the Numenorians. Like it took her from just paddling in an ocean to actually that, which is an interesting world building device. Cool. We didn't see any of the dwarves or Celebrimbor, or Elrond, so we can't talk on that. The elf at the end, Arendar's. That's cool, right? And we're potentially seeing who Adar is, which I'm thinking it has to be Sauron. It has to be.
It feels like it. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it does have to be, but the way they're just making everything is so suspenseful, right? Whenever Galadriel and what's the other guy's name?
Halbrand.
Whenever Galadriel and Halbrand get picked up, and they go out onto the deck and they're like, where are we? Where are we going? It's just like,
I can't tell you. You have to wait for my betters.
Yes. I can't. Home. And then then they're coming in. And then Galadriel says, oh, Numenor. Like, it's
I wish I could roll my R's like her, to be fair. I can't. I wish I could. So an issue I did have with the Numenor area mainly is the dialogue. So specifically between Galadriel and Halbrand, it felt like a reuse of Boromir and Aragorn. It did, right? You're the king, right? Like when Boromir's dying. You know?
I thought, I mean, not even just that. It's like, it felt like reusing Aragorn completely.
It really does.
This reluctant king, right? He's apparently supposed to be the king of these people to unite them, and he doesn't want to do it.
Oh, but my bloodline swore a blood oath to Morgoth, whereas Aragorn's bloodline didn't destroy the ring, right?
Right.
It's like both need a redeemed. That I did not like. However, I will say, it's not a terrible idea. They just needed to change the dialogue to not reflect Aragorn so much, which is what happened. I thought the Hall of Lore was a cool touch, made by Elros, Elrond's brother. I thought that was a cool little thing put in. Elendil's actor, I thought was great.
Yep.
With that, as a whole, I thought this episode was the weakest because of this. Elendil and fucking Isildur are here, okay, during the creation of the Rings of Power. So, Númenóreans have a long lifespan, right? They can live up to 280, 300 years sometimes. Cool.
So they're like, right, because there's normal humans, right?
Which are the men of the Southlands.
Right. So there's normal humans, which are like us for all intents and purposes. Then there's the Númenóreans, and their lifespan is more along the lines of like dwarves, right? Dwarves and Númenóreans, they live a similar amount of time, correct?
They were gifted that because they helped the elves against Morgoth. With that, so this show centers around the forging of the Rings of Power, which Galadriel was there when it happened. There was no time skip indicated. There's no time skip happened. That's around 1500 of the Second Age. Elendil and Isildur are literally like born in 3100. Well, Elendil is born in like 3100, right? Yeah. And they fight in the battle of to retake Barad-dûr at the end of the Second Age, right? Which we see at the beginning of The Lord of the Rings. They have no meaning to be here in this episode. This actually completely destroys the lore, 100%. And because of this, now I really worry that it is Gandalf that's with the Harfoots.
Right.
And that sucks because he does. Yep. We don't need Gandalf in this series. We don't. He's great. Yep. I love Gandalf. Don't get me wrong. I love Gandalf. He doesn't need to be here. We've used him enough, And now I'm not even mad that Isildur has a sister. Okay, she's hot. She's smoking hot. So
that's why you're not mad.
Not even mad, right? Or the fact that he's an older brother. That one, if he had a younger brother, would be better. Anyway, they're out of place, and this ruins the lore, and this kind of makes me have to turn this off as an adaptation and just make it a show. Yeah, I can't see it as lore anymore. I can't look at this through the lens of lore, right? I can still try, but I'm going to get mad because they just amalgamated. It's not even like 50 years they decided to skip. It's 2,000 fucking years, or like 1,600, right? That's a long time. And it's not needed. They could have done seasons 1 and 2 as like the creation of the rings, right? Galadriel's character arc there. Season 3, have a time skip to the end of the age, right? And then have seasons 4 and 5 be the build up, the alliance making, right, to fight that final battle before the Third Age starts.
Yeah, and guess what? Elves are immortal. You don't need to worry about them looking different. They can look exactly the same.
Tell it to Elrond.
Yeah. You have a big elf cast. A majority of the cast here are elves. No big deal. So exactly like you said, first season, maybe the first 2 seasons, keep it in like the same 50-year period, right? And then after that, you can jump ahead and do whatever you want to do with Isildur, with actually like after the rings are created.
Well, that's why you have season 3 is like the bridge season, right?
Right.
And you have everything taking place during there to like kind of bridge the gap, right? And it's going to have to focus on elves, right? Whatever, who cares? And then 4 and 5, you reintroduce some new characters. All right, that's when you introduce Elendil and Isildur, and fuck it, his sister and older brother. I don't care. But 2000, 1500, 1600 years early is just not it. So episode 3, lore-wise, gets a 1 out of 10. And then as a show itself, it gets like a 5 out of 10 for me. I mean, the cinematography I thought just was so weird, you know?
Yeah, this is an issue that I like, but I didn't really say. I like the Arendir storyline. I thought that whole thing was cool. It was fun. It was actually some action going on whenever you got this big old snooze fest in the rest of the season so far. But I think because it's a Lord of the Rings adaptation and because it has to live up to these high standards that everyone's going to put on it, because the books are awesome, because the movies are awesome, it's just not that good. I personally, overall, so far, right? There's only 3 episodes so far. So far, it's not terrible. It's not abysmal, but it's not that good. So
it's better than Wheel of Time.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm along the same lines as Wheel of Time. It's like but Wheel of Time was a little bit different because there was a lot more that they had to be able to use. But why? What's the point of taking the IP if you're not going to try to do it justice?
Yeah,
and maybe they are trying to do it justice, and they're just not good enough.
They're not good enough. That's what this is. I mean, you see it. Episode 1 and 2, the cinematography felt fine, felt good almost. Episode 3, the cinematography felt like amateurs, right? It's an inconsistency thing, which is a showrunner's job, is consistency. But yeah, I don't think the series is bad by any stretch if you just watch it as a show.
I had the same feeling with Wheel of Time. In the first 3 episodes, I wasn't happy with it, but it was fine. Right? It wasn't terrible. And then as far as an adaptation goes, I hated it after episode 3.
This felt like Wheel of Time's after episode 3, the death of following the lore. Lord of the Rings has a bit more room to play with, though. However, they chose the option. They chose death. Straight up. They chose an option that you can't play with by bringing characters 1,600 years into the future or past, you know?
You're totally right. It's so weird because you're right. They have so much room to play with and they decide to not use all that room.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I can't even fathom why they thought that was something that they should do.
They should have got the Game of Thrones crew, not D&D, because they would have fucked it at the end. They have a lot to still set up properly. If this whole season is a setup season, they still have a lot of work to do, and I don't see how they make it interesting with enough action, with enough plot development, with enough layers to build in the remaining 5 episodes.
Yeah, and I will say this, I'm glad that they cut one storyline from this episode, because I think doing 4 storylines an episode is just too much. It takes away too much from the other ones, right? Yeah. That was one of the issues I had with the first 2 episodes, is they were just cutting too much.
They need to focus on 2 and then have a 3rd baked in there a little bit, but not much, right?
Which I think this episode was doing, right? It had the Galadriel in Numenor, and it had the Arendir, and I think the Harfoots was kind of like the 3rd one where it's like... Where it was doing that.
I think it feels better as an episode when they do it like that. They just got to get rid of the fucking slow motion. As a whole, episodes 1 through 3 so far. As a show, I'd give this a overall probably 5.5, 6 right now out of 10. Because there are a lot of redeeming elements to it. However, there's also a lot to disparage that I think, mostly due to dialogue and a lot of, they're not doing show, don't tell, they're telling and not showing. And I think that's their biggest issue. It's a writing issue more than anything. And it's not even that they're writing bad stories. They're just not writing it well. They're not executing it properly. As an adaptation, I'd probably give it a... if episode 3 didn't happen with Elendil and Isildur, it would have been higher, but I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10 because, I'm pretty sure that's Gandalf now. And Yeah, so as an adaptation, 3 out of 10. Again, because there are some redeeming qualities. I don't think it's a fucking travesty. It's not a 1 out of 10. But the only way you'd see me rating it a 1 out of 10 is if they brought Aragorn into this fucking season somehow.
That would,
you know?
That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, 3 out of 10 for the adaptation side of things.
I mean, and the problem is they decided to do an adaptation, so I kind of rope it all into one. It's like, if you want to just make generic fantasy show number 50, fine, do it. But don't use someone else's IP as your means of doing that. So, yeah, I think just overall, again, there's things I liked about it as a show, but it's rough so far. I'll just give it like a 4 out of 10 if we're doing a score on here. I don't think it's that good right now.
And the only reason I'm splitting it up is because I have to, or else I'm going to not be able to enjoy entertainment in general, right? Because at the end of the day, this is just supposed to be entertainment, right? So I'm going to try to watch it through the lens of entertainment. And if it's good and it entertains me, it's good. Mm-hmm. If it's not good and it entertains me, it's good. If it's not good and doesn't entertain me, it's probably not good. You know, like what's a really bad, any Nicolas Cage movie? Not good. Not good. What? Super entertaining. I love them. Right? Just as simple as that. I like dumb shit like that.
You're totally wrong. Good and entertaining.
Face
all
off.
Nicolas Cage stuff.
But that's just my philosophy behind it, because I don't want to grow to hate this like Wheel of Time. But Wheel of Time was more of a direct adaptation. You know what I mean? Because they are from point of view stories, first person point of view stories, and they made this story a lot worse when it didn't need to be for whatever fucking reason, dude. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I was a lot more vested in Wheel of Time as well. As you can see, I don't have a Lord of the Rings book on my shelf behind me. I have the whole series of Wheel of Time. So I was a lot more vested in that one. So this one, for someone who's vested in Lord of the Rings in the way that I'm vested in Wheel of Time, I'm sure that they probably have the same reaction that I have to that other series. So this one's a little easier for me to take a step back on. But even with that, it's like having Isildur in there, having probably Gandalf, it makes it kind of tough.
Yeah, it does. I will say this, and this is one of the channels I think that's doing the fairest reviews of them, of the episodes, is Nerd of the Rings YouTube channel.
That's where I get all of my lore information from for it.
Yeah, and I think he is the most fair reviewer of a super fan out of all of them. And that dude's a super fan. That dude's stupid knowledgeable, right? And
just go look at his channel.
And he doesn't shit on it in an angry fashion. He's like, this wasn't in here, and you're like, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. And I think he has really good takes on this stuff. So overall, those are Ray's thoughts on episodes 1 through 2, and then 3. I'm hoping episodes 4 through 8, however many episodes are in the season, get better for sure. I hope the lore sticks a little bit tighter, and I hope to see a Balrog by the end of it. That'd be cool. Would love to see one. That's Ray's thoughts.
I hope the season gets better. I don't want the season to get worse.
Yeah.
I'm not very hopeful for that, but I want that to be the case. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
With that, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Let us know your thoughts below. Ray, out.
Everyone, thanks for watching.